Welcome to the podcast. Nice to meet you, Kuldeep. I'm Joydeep. I'm one of the founders of ClearFeed. And with me today, we have Kuldeep from Last9. We just want to learn a little bit about what Last9 does. What's the business like? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And, hand over the mic to Kuldeep.
Brilliant. Kuldeep Dhankar, I'm one of the co-founders at Last9, along with Nishant. Last9's we're an agentic unified observability platform. Our mission is to build an autonomous ops platform. Last9 started in 2020. Our mission was really to build an intelligence layer for ops. And when I say ops, I mean software ops, people who run software at scale. You heard these people who carrying laptops around on Friday and Saturday evenings, right? People who are supposedly on call, right? The world software needs to be kept running by an tireless army of people, right? Whose job is really, really tough. So our hope in 2020 was to be able to automate some of that, to be able to, provide an intelligence layer where, they can handle this workload better, right? Software doesn't tell you before time that it's going to break. It breaks.
Right.
And people have to keep it running. We've come a long way since then, right? We've tested a lot of approaches in the market and so on and so forth. And today we eventually realized that the path to eventual autonomy in ops, wherein you can run any software at any reliability, at any complexity, at any scale, without really a lot of human toil. It goes through, data, context, and knowledge. And what we're trying to do today with Last9 is integrate those three elements of operations. It's a complex job, but it's extremely fulfilling.
I'm very curious, what was your personal background or professional background, prior to this gig, and how did you start this venture? What was the inspiration?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I've had a very fulfilling career. I came out of college, started a bunch of startups, became a product manager at Nokia somewhere down the line, mostly because, well, I needed money to pay the bills. Right? We're talking about early 2000s. Doing a startup was a great way to not get married or have a life. It was a very, I think it was the last decade for technology in India. But yeah, around 2009, I joined Nokia. I went on, I built a SaaS product for Nokia for beat salespeople. From there, transitioned to the developer experience team, fought in the Windows Phone and the OS wars, so to speak, right? Did reasonably well. It was after that, actually, I joined this young company called CleverTap. Anand Jain was a friend. We used to trek together, and I joined CleverTap initially without any purpose. Like, I just needed to leave Microsoft more than I wanted to join CleverTap because CleverTap was at 10 people. I started by doing support, then did build customer success, eventually, started doing sales, ended up heading sales, building that business, scaling it to a very, very good scale. By 2020, like the intensity at a startup, right? These are dog years, right? Startups are improbable. You're fighting all the time to survive, and I like to think of them as dog years. I had this thesis in 2020 where, there are only really three things you sell in SaaS, right? You sell a data engine, you sell a workflow, or you sell services. There's really all SaaS can be put in these buckets. And the one you really want to sell is a unique way of handling and managing data, a data engine. Workflows are, with AI, workflows are effectively dead, right? I mean, what everybody who says they're agentic, like Last9, right, is essentially saying that we used to be a workflow SaaS. Services are, they're just bad business generally. So I wanted to build something with data. In my initial thought was I wanted to build something around sales tech, but then I realized there are too many people building in sales tech, and over time, sales, the CRO buys too much. I met Nishant. Nishant was building this fantastic platform and saying, hey, you know what, this problem is going to be solved through data, context, and knowledge. And I just loved that idea, the ability to integrate and elevate a data engine by integrating context and knowledge. Now, this was just the beginning of, the GPT revolution or the AI revolution. Little was I to know that, this will actually lead to, us building for a couple of years together. So to me, this was a natural progression, right? It wasn't any different from selling what I was selling at CleverTap, right? And I am fundamentally a sales guy, right? Who come from, I started my career as an engineer, by the way, and a product manager and an evangelist, and eventually realized that my skills can be best put to use in going to market. So that's how I ended up, right, selling a data engine and then integrating context on top of it and knowledge, and hopefully we can lead to an autonomous revolution in software ops.
Very interesting. Yeah. I think the transition to sales from engineering is quite impressive, I must say.
I highly recommend it, by the way. I keep telling people, you think engineers get paid the money? Now wait, but you see what sales guys get paid.
But you have to be a successful salesperson. Not every salesperson gets paid. But
Well, not
yes,
every engineer is successful either, just so you know.
that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
The power
Uh,
law applies everywhere.
So I'm very curious, in a nutshell, like the observability space is crowded is a very cliched word, but still, there's a lot of
Totally
competition,
crowded.
obviously. Companies like Datadog, Splunk, like there's a bunch of vendors. How do you stand out in the market?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's very crowded. But here's the thing. There's a reason it's crowded. Because it's also a area, it's also
Okay.
a area where there really no, how would you say it? There are no ideal solutions, right? Everything has engineering is itself an exercise in trade-offs, right? Trade this off, trade that off,
Yep.
and so on and so forth. Yeah, the new challenges keep emerging, right? Just when people are starting to, get settled down with logs, the whole virtualization and microservices and now AI and new workloads, right? So, software doesn't stand still. And because it doesn't stand still, how you run software and how you operate it and how you service an increasing scale of customers, right? Just keeps changing, right? New challenges. And when you're just about solve challenges, scale and complexity, right? Now you start have new things. Say, hey, now we got to turn a profit. And what happens when you need to turn a profit? Now you got to do everything at 1/10 the price. And then who gets hit first, right? I mean, you can't get rid of engineers. At some point in time, your system's not going to scale, right? So you gotta go and say, hey, can we do this better? Can we do this cheaper? Can we do this more efficiently? And so on and so forth. So because of that, there's really been very little stability in this space. It's very crowded. There's a lot of people offering a lot of solutions. But I like to think of it as is that there's no one way of writing software, and running software is just the flip side of that, right?
Got it.
I mean, sure. If you look at what Cursor is doing with CodeGen, right? Is that any different? I mean, from how you run software, right? Like there are many quote unquote cursors, right? There's the lovables, there are the vibe coding platforms, and then there are variations on cursor itself, and there are cloud code, and there are people doing all sorts of things. So I think the variation is great, and I think there is a lot of variation. How we stand out is very, very simple. The only thing you can stand out to when you're selling to the CTO is your approach. Hey, this is what the problem I'm trying to solve, and this is my approach. And look, no approach is gonna work for every single CTO, right? Here's the thing, right? This whole role of CTO, which I think I find fascinating, of how human systems affect technology progress. The CTO is not the CIO. The CTO is a person in whom is how shall I say, compressed the need to solve a particular technology problem and continuously evolve it on so many parameters, right? Cost, efficiency, innovation, and so on and so forth. The CTO is always looking for an edge, right? Can I do this? Can I do this with more engineers? How do I scale my engineering team to 1,000 people, right? Then what happens? Who handles alerts? How do I do on call and so on and so forth? Or can I do the same thing with 30 engineers, right? There's all sorts of variation on the problem, which means that there have to be an exactly that amount of diversity of
Right.
solutions out there. So the only way we stand out is very, very simple. My co-founder Nishant has, you know, very well informed, well earned opinions, and opinions have to be well earned, right? Because obviously he's obviously operated in the market for long. On what is it that we're trying to solve? For example, his thought that look, you cannot do anything in observability until you integrate the data with context. Just logs, just metrics, just traces. If you combine them, and that itself is not going to tell you anything. You need to understand the tribal knowledge that is, that continuously evolves within a set of engineers. Unless you know what the engineers are up to, unless you know what the problem is, unless you know that there is this one customer who is, uh, you know, first among equals, right? That no matter what happens, that
Hmm.
customer can't go down, everybody else can go down, right? We
Right, right,
always
right.
have our favorite children, right, in production. Unless you have that, no AI decisioning, no expert system is going to be able to operate your system autonomously. Now, when we express that opinion, that, hey, you know what we can do is we can uh, for example, so when we started to build agents, right, we decided that we're gonna not build agents, we're gonna build a platform that lets our customers, our users, build agents. Because we've accepted that we don't believe that we will ever have the context or have an opinion that
Hmm.
will, that will essentially fit everybody out there. And that opinion is what people say. Hey, you know what? Okay, we by the way, today's a fun day. We were just recognized as Gartner Cool Vendor, and one of the things they called out is that last night's approach is that instead of having an opinion about their customer's infrastructure, they let their customer capture that opinion in form of an agent, right? And that gets us customers. That has people coming in and say, hey, tell me How is it that you're going to let me build agents for my own system? Right?
Right.
So you stand on my opinion. There's really no, I mean, I could call myself a different unique word or unique position and so on and so forth. But if I call myself an agentic unified observability platform, right? You
Yeah.
run a search with that and 5 people will pop up. That's not gonna, differentiation is very difficult. It's our approach and it's our demonstrated experience with the customers. I found that to be very, very effective.
Yeah.
Again, this is not a
That,
sale, by the way, that you make over a counter. Sorry to say,
right.
right? It's a sale that you're gonna get evaluated. It's almost like selling observability is like almost applying to get married, right? You're gonna get vetted in detail by the concerned person, by the concerned person's parents and their relatives. Very much like Indian marriage, selling
Right.
observability. So
I
I
have a
can
lot
make
of
that.
questions, but I'm gonna since you have already dived a little bit into the AI stuff, had a question about and we are ourselves sort of taking a similar approach, trying to provide a layer where people can build agents for themselves. I have a question here. This seems to be very, as you said, contextual, right? Every customer, every team's workflow is very different. The knowledge inside their processes inside their heads is very different, team to team. See, taking on services as part of, you know, helping your customers, or you think your customers are able to do it themselves?
I have a bit of a controversial opinion on that, which is that I've always avoided services primarily because services are fundamentally low gross margin. Very hard to charge, if you're a 50% gross margin, you're charging, 1x of your cost. Hard to charge more than that, right? And the problem is to build modern companies and to actually deal with the expense of building technology companies, you need to charge 2 to
Yeah.
3x of your cost. So you're not going to make money, right? Gross margin is power. What is that? But even ignoring that, yes, when you're trying to build a solution where people are going to have some time, they're going to have to learn a new skill. There's always going to be some amount of lag. There's some amount of resistance that people have. We've solved that by essentially creating actually two engineering teams. One is a field engineering team, right,
Got it.
and a platform engineering team, right? A field engineering team. So because I built customer success at CleverTap, my previous company, I learned that there are pros and cons to that movement, right? For example, I never agreed that customer success should upsell accounts. I think customer success should never discuss money with the customer. You need
Mm,
you need an agency of trust and you need an agency of monetization, so to speak,
mm,
right? Those two people should never mix because the trust get mediated and there are misaligned incentives, right? There's moral hazard there. So what we've done is, we've got so we have a team, a platform engineering team, whose job is really to be the users, the super users, and demonstrate in the office of the customer of what we're trying to do. And the good thing about engineers is, they are, in the end, all engineers value agency above everything else, right? No engineer
yep.
will purposely lock themselves in, which is why, even for observability, open telemetry is the standard, saying, what, I don't care how beautiful and lovely you are. I want the ability to move out when I want to. I want to be able to, do things with my own hand. Again, engineering is agency, right? Effectively. So once you demonstrate a few workflows to these customers, once
Mm.
you show them this is how we use them, they're usually very quick to again show, not tell. I think works better. You have great documentation, but very few people now read documentation because
Yeah,
it's just
documentation is just, I think, it's a input to now it's just a input to LLMs, I think.
yes. Yes. So we do the field engineering team approach, and that works actually honestly very well. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're leading up to is we eventually probably will have a field CTO whose job will be to really lead the engineering efforts, learn from a customer's engineer in the customer's context, in the customer environment, right? How our solution is actually deployed at scale. What that also lets me do, by the way, is that lets me take on very large customer and very large workloads because
Right.
I don't have to depend on them fumbling their way around an interface. Also takes some pressure off my UX team where I don't have to absolutely have flawless
Yeah,
zero drop
very
UX.
difficult.
Learn
I
and
think
adapt.
the trade-off between new user experience and power user experience is very difficult to bridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very difficult. Cool. Let me come to actually probably what might be your favorite topic, sales. I mean, you guys, I think, are mostly based out of India and obviously doing very well. What's the secret to your success? How are you finding customers? I understand the positioning and the differentiation, but how do you find these customers? Where are they located? Are a lot of them in India or are they worldwide? Tell us a little bit about stuff there.
Right. I'll challenge the success bit, right? I'm not $1 billion revenue yet. Once I get there, I'll take that compliment. So I'll hold that in abeyance for now. But yeah, so we're actually a fully remote company. Mostly, I mean, there were various reasons for this, but this the only reason really is we started in 2020 March.
Right.
As you can imagine, we didn't really have a choice but to be remote, right? And it's working well. We kept the team small and we kept the team reasonably senior, so that's worked for us. When it comes to the sales team, we actually keep a very small sales team. About half of our business is actually in the US. So I work out of India, and Nishant, my co-founder, works out of the Bay Area.
Okay.
Right. So, our attention is split. We only picked two markets, though we right now expanding in Middle East and Southeast Asia. Uh, so very simple. I look at the way we go to market is fundamentally three problems, right? There, and again, just looking at the funnel. We call it tofu, mofu, and bofu, which is top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. Top of the funnel is really about awareness and consideration, right? Finding people, qualifying them, whether they and more importantly, filtering out the kind of customers that we can't service, right? So
Yeah.
we're just starting to get into a place where we believe we can do amazing things for banks and fintechs and so on and so forth. But for a long time, we said, you know what, we can't be involved in a very detailed, very long procurement process because honestly, we're not equipped. You just have to have one person just to do that. So top of the funnel really is where we go engaged. So a lot of companies, I mean, it's very fashionable to say that your customers will find you. Well, customers never find you. It's a very, very crowded place. You gotta advance to contact. So we advance to contact through various ways. We our highest emphasis effort is events. We go to every industrial conference. We go where the developers are, where the VP sales are. We're not pushy. We're not telling them we're the best. We're just giving away t-shirts. We just want to be remembered. We just want to be known as cool people, good people, fun people, and which we are, right? I mean, we're just being authentic and saying, you know what, you don't have to push the product. You just have to get into. My theory is that everybody has, the Dunbar number is 150 relationships in your head. If I
Right.
can be in your Dunbar window, when of 150 people that you have in your head at that point in time, you might remember me. Hey, let's just try and talk to class nine. Maybe they have something. Figure out what the problems are, what are the big initiatives are. So we spend a lot of time in industry conference, which is why we present everywhere. Right now, it's almost impossible to be everywhere. We're a very small team, but
Right.
my head of revenue marketing who runs this function, right? She's been working with me for a long time, Apurva. And she's really, really good at this. And, we make sure that we find the right kind of events to go to right kind of events, shake hands, meet people. Instead of visiting cards, we give out t-shirts, right? Trust me, it works brilliantly, right? We spot our t-shirts in airports. We give about 10,000 t-shirts a year, right? And it's great,
Nice.
right? And these are, by the way, these are well-designed t-shirts, right? We take that time, we design them ourselves. We're obsessed with t-shirts. I'm obsessed with t-shirts, but that's all right. So are my team. So that's how we get attention and consideration. Consideration is really a simple matter of I have this problem. Do you guys do anything towards that? Hey, yes we do, or no we don't, right? Very simple. Then after that comes technical validation, which is where my field engineering team steps in. Technical validation is like, okay, very clear that Last Nine does the things that we need to do to be able to solve the problem, but can Last Nine specifically solve for our problems? Do we, there's always this political and technical alignment that occurs, and that's where most of the time is. So
Right.
there, we struggled and we eventually found that engineers don't want to talk to non-engineers. They just want to talk to engineers. You say, yo,
Right. Yeah.
get on a call. If nothing gets done in that call, right, it's going to be a waste of my time. So
Yeah.
it helps. It's actually led by a platform engineer, Prathamesh Sonpatki, who's well known around the Ruby community and the like. Right, he leads that team, and that's a bunch of fun people. They're a fun team. So they're not sales engineer, by the way. They are
Right.
field engineers. Every
Right.
sales engineer who does the demo also ends up managing that account's technical support after conversion. Right. So these people are effectively paired for life and so on and so forth. It's a bit of a non-scalable approach. But honestly, my belief on that is with a lot of AI, with a lot of this, right? It's surprisingly how well people can even scale. Right.
Yeah.
And this is fun, right? Engineers love being given responsibility and owning something, right? So I'm effectively putting this, a big account with these people, and they're saying, we love owning this, and we love owning outcomes, and they're very passionate. And because they're field engineering teams and they have access and ability to create PRs, sometimes if the platform team doesn't build a feature, they just build it for the customer. They're saying, damn it, I'm just gonna build a
Yeah, I
chip,
think
right?
the other thing that I really like is when you put good engineers in front of customers, they are also they can think differently about what the product needs to do. Like they bring back very good feedback for the product folks, like myself, like I think I'm more of a product person, and I love having good people in front of engineers to bring that feedback. Internally, tell us a little bit about, you said started in 2020. I presume your team has grown. What are your biggest challenges today in scaling the company? scaling the complex product. And I think one of the things I've seen is that, I mean, while, services is something that's low margin and so on, but complex products, the support is always
Oh
something
yeah.
that a little bit of white glove service is needed. So yeah, I just want to learn about your challenges. Also, I think it would be useful to understand how you guys build out product roadmaps. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about your internal workings.
No, so when it comes to support, by the way, let me just address support first, right? We use ClearFeed as a product, right? And we've been using it for a long time, actually.
Yeah, you one of our earliest
Just
customers, yes.
yeah, and it honestly just aligned with us, right? We didn't even, by the
Right.
way, I don't think we even went and detailed in finding so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, one of the first, I remember your co-founder, I should tell him that, guys are charging us too little for what
Yeah.
value we're getting out of it, which is that I can, like sometimes, in the deep in the night, right? We have a very small team, right?
Right.
35 odd people, which means that we rarely have people monitoring channels all the time, right? But sometimes,
Yeah.
Clear catches that, hey, this thing has been waiting for your attention, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
that gets us to that a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Customers who are getting support on Slack understand, right, that this is going to be way faster than email. But even
Yeah.
then, right, to be able to react to customers quickly, to know and have the comfort that it's not going to fall off.
Yeah.
But support is a toil, right? And the objective, the way we see support is the support is almost like, they have this Indian concept, right? Or 40 days in the desert, right? That you're providing a lot of support until you fix your product,
Yeah.
right? So this is break fix where your product isn't working or something is broken. That's not support. That's just your job, right?
Yeah.
And then this thing that the product says one thing, does another, right? That's support. Now that should not occur, which means support is a way of, paying for that, that sin, right?
Yeah.
You made a mission, an error of a mission, you using support to pay for that. And gradually, as accounts mature, the amount of support goes down. What happens is, more engagement happens where customers say that, hey, we would like to solve this new problem and
Right.
this new problem.
Right. Right.
Now, I've always struggled with this because people have told me that, this pressures your margin, but I hate charging hourly prices for support
Yeah, it's
because
very
what that does,
difficult, right? Yeah.
there's a corollary to Jevons paradox, right? Where something, when you put a price to it, people try to reduce it, right? And, Jevons
Right.
paradox is when some price drops, right? People use more of it. By the way, the
Right.
corollary is that when you price something, people start using less of it. Why the hell would I want my customers to use less support? Because the problem with that is, sure, as a metric that makes sense. You are giving out less support, but they're not charging you support because they're gonna ding $150 of an hour for it, right? I just want them because what that happens is that becomes almost as a fire break for issues, right? Where before
Right.
they ever hit me in seriousness, the customers have flagged it. They said, "Hey, there's an error like this." So our whole mantra is, if a customer wants to jump on a call, go ahead and jump on a call. No big deal, right?
Right.
It's fine. It'll
Right.
work. It'll work well. So we've continued to. So, support is an investment, right?
Yeah.
My biggest challenge, to go back to your original question, right, is how to keep the team small
Yeah.
while being able to service larger and larger customers, right?
Got it.
And honestly, uh, how you become an expert in AI, in my opinion, is you try to use it. You don't try
Yep.
to, read on it, you try to use it, right? Uh, like, as a matter of fact, I have to say this, not just because I'm talking to you. ClearFeed is actually the oldest tool in a system. We've replaced pretty much everything, right? But from a go-to-market team's perspective, ClearFeed is the only tool in the system because, we don't even know we use it, if you know what I mean, right? It's
Yeah, it's
working in
just
the
embedded
background.
inside Slack, right? Yeah. So
I think the best kind of software tooling is like electricity, where you only feel it when it's not working, right? The fans humming, the bill gets paid and has to be paid and everything, right? So it works great. I still tell you,
Right.
Jody, I think you're charging us way less than what you should be charging us, right? But I'll leave that to you. Not that I want to pay more, but I'm just simply saying that I wouldn't entirely hate paying more, so to speak, right? But the point is, look, we use tooling like this. For example, we use a lot of cloud code, right? As a matter of fact, so much so that we had to upgrade to the enterprise plan to buy more tokens because people frequently run into that. Putting a field engineering team, putting a bunch of engineers with the customers. One of the things that I'm focused on is that I think the age of large teams is pretty much done. We're gonna have to do more with fewer people, right?
Mm.
Massive 700-800 people engineering teams, right? I mean, I don't know if people are gonna build that again from scratch in this era. Sure, maybe at a billion-dollar revenue scale. But today, my biggest challenge is how do I do more while managing these people's work-life balance. I actually have internally a joke called that dark circle index, where how many people show up to a morning call with dark circles. I'm like, okay, you have to take 2 days off because you clearly been pulling all-nighters, right? That
So
happens.
have
Startup
you
thing.
guys done build sort of internal tools to like support requires a lot of context for about the customer, prior history, a lot of stuff about how they are using the product. Have you built some internal stuff around this? Just curious.
No, Joydeep, one of the biggest, one of the term, do not build internal tools, build the thing that customers pay for. Look,
Ah,
you, I mean, I could build like technically, okay, technically I could build ClearFeed with some amount of time and effort and everything, right? But I could just pay you, as I say, I could underpay you by your own willingness, right? And that just does the job for me. So my whole thing is, when possible, go buy the tool. It barely
okay,
costs anything, right? And again, that's another way of keeping the team small because we don't build any tools because
right,
we're not married. Like, if I find somebody trying to solve a problem by writing code or creating an agent, so on, so on, like, look, listen, have you tried buying this yet?
right. Okay,
Because
then let me
surprisingly,
change my question. I mean, are there any interesting tools that you have bought of late or are evaluating that are interesting
so
in this context?
we're evaluating a tool for billing as customers and providing billing information, right? A tool called Zenskar, again, another
Yeah,
Indian company, fantastic
yeah.
tool. They're
Also our
they're
customer,
saying
by the way.
Oh yeah. So again, very very cool, very cool. I think tool is great. We're implementing it. In addition to that, again, Cloud Code right continues. We constantly, like every single day, I'm dealing with Cloud Code is run into token and daily limit and so on and so forth, right? So we're consuming more tokens every day because again we're able to get a lot done, and I think we're right there at the frontier of what it's gonna mean. Uh, to be able to run very, very intensive engineering operations with a very, very small team. Uh, Other tools, I mean, honestly, most regular tool uses actually around compliance and stuff like that
Yeah,
as we
I
develop.
understand. Yeah. I think even actually the challenge is even evaluating tools and trying them out. That also takes bandwidth actually. So one has limited bandwidth most of the
I have an easy hack to that, right? Traditionally there is a budget approver and then there is a buyer and then there is a buyer's manager, right? I've collapsed everything down. If somebody wants a tool, if they can explain why they need the tool, I just tell them how much budget you need and then do not come back to me. I mean, saying, you pick the tool and then you're responsible if you pick up a bad tool, right? Give them accountability. It works. We're a small team. Budgets approvals are less than $30,000, $40,000. We just simply give it to the user and say, please go ahead and don't come to me. What that does is, sometimes the whole bureaucracy of buying can overwhelm all the benefits you get out from buying a tool. I'm saying you bought the tool, you are the person responsible, you can sign for it. And if my compliance and finance says that they can't sign for it, the amount is too big. I said, okay, fine, I'll sign for it, but I will not read the damn contract. Just make sure that you did the right thing. And it works great. Like for example, till then I don't know who signed for ClearFeed. Like I don't. I think it was Vikram back when he was here. He signed it. And it doesn't matter. I'm like, look, as long as you don't get shut down because somebody forgot to pay the bill, whoever's responsible. So no, Prathamesh is now taken over, right? And he wants to now do more because as we add more and more customers to Slack and so on and so forth. So I think that ability to buy tools very quickly, ability to use more tools, buy instead of make, use as many tools
yeah,
as possible, right?
yeah,
Churn out when it doesn't make sense, has allowed my team to basically think in terms of, do I need a person or do I need a tool? And more
yeah,
often than not, the answer is usually I need more tool. We need a person when the hours expand into, sleeping hours, right? When people say, you know what, I cannot possibly now do this work in less than 7, 8, 10 hours,
right,
right? Then we need another person who can come in and, add another, 8 hours in a day and so on and so forth. But other than adding time, right, we found that it's actually surprisingly easy to be able to add capability and output to a
right,
small team.
right. So let me just jump to one of the sort of a closing topic. Um, uh, actually a couple of questions. One is what's ahead for Last Nine as a company? What do the next 1 or 2 years look like for you? What are your goals? What's on your mind? Anything? And also, like, I think we are one of the rare companies, who have built a sort of I would say a deep tech kind of a product, right, out of India mostly. What
Yep.
advice do you have for, others in this area who are trying to build similar companies out of India?
Brilliant. Thank you for that, by the way. Last night's focus is very, very clear. We are going to build the autonomous platform for ops, right? And that's remains and will remain our mission. We're gonna get there by, in stages. It's a lot of work to be done. I think we solved the data layer. We're gonna solve the context layer with our latest agentic launch, and then we're gonna integrate knowledge, right? By the way, one of the big things on that is, we're inspired by how ClearFeed collects ongoing customer conversation because now you have knowledge of who needs attention. That's inspired us saying that that's an element that we need to add to telemetry data to be able to do that, right? One of the conversations one of these days we'll have our coffee. But the point is we're going to integrate data, context and knowledge over the next thing. This whole year is going to be our expansion into the US, our expansion into Middle East and Southeast Asia, right? We are already fairly well scaled out in India, and we have to invest in the US, right? There's obviously going to be fundraisers and so on and so forth. But our mission is very simple. We are building the autonomous platform for, right? Internally, we also joke that we're building cursor for ops. Right? It's always a bad idea to use another company name to describe what you do. But fine, if I could be reductive, I would say we're
Not if
building.
that company is worth $20 billion. Then it's a good
There you go.
idea.
There you go, right? This one's an exception, right? So, right, we're building customer ops. And yes, my advice really, and it's not really an advice, it's just an exhortation to action, right? For people. Look, you know this, right? Indians have a way of, saying that, we are less somehow, right? We'll have this complaint that we don't do enough and so on and so forth. I tell people that India is such a beautiful place to build software from. Number one, you're sitting on a $45 billion market, software market right here. Like, by the way, great software is never built in a place that doesn't have a local market for it. This is the irony of it. All right. Another thing is, US and India are not that far apart, by the way. All the visa stuff,
Yeah.
notwithstanding. Look, we do build great software out of India and we do sell great software out of India, right? But the thing is, there are other things that overwhelm. My advice is very simple. Build software in India, right? Build it in the US, doesn't really matter. The point is, but start selling and learning how to sell in India. India is one of the hardest market to sell. It pays you top dollar. But more importantly, India lets you test the scale of your software before you go to the US. So the one thing, we have some very, very large customers like Nika, customers like GeoStar and so on and so forth. When I go to the US, I rarely meet customers who have that scale. So India as a market will give you scale, will allow you to deal with adversity, will fine tune and sharpen your sales processes. So start selling in India, right? Then land in
Very,
India. I
very,
always
very unconventional advice, I might say.
I've done it
Something,
thrice. I've done it
yeah,
thrice, right? I've built multiple tens of millions of businesses,
yeah.
right, in India, right? And it just works. People pay. Come on, Joy. Deep, it's not like, I said, I keep telling you, you have a lot of customers who wish you charge them more, right? And most of them have the same skin color as us.
Yeah.
So,
Wait,
it's.
yeah, Kuldeep, sorry, I think we're gonna just about to hit the time limit. So I love the last bit, very controversial, maybe a topic for another day, particularly over a coffee or something. And it was great to have you here. I wish we could go on longer, but I loved your insights, and hopefully, people who watch this video will also
Thank you for having me.
find the same. Okay, thank you so much.